Have you ever felt a certain feeling and then decided that you don't want to feel that anymore? So maybe you put off doing the same thing, or perhaps you knew that maybe if you cook, you might burn yourself. So you're scared of burning yourself. You burned yourself once. So this actually happened to me the other day. I had mentioned talking about taking yoga classes and doing yoga on a regular basis. I actually started going to a new studio and I had a pretty intense session 2 sessions ago. About probably 75% till the end of the class, I started feeling these intense emotions and I couldn't quite understand why, but I started tearing up. That feeling actually scared me, and in the back of my mind, I was subconsciously thinking about it, wondering if I should take another class. I think we were doing a lot of chest openers and hips, and I don't know if this is true, but apparently we can hold a lot of tension and feelings in that area. As someone who has gone through a lot of different things this past year and previously, I might have held a lot of my tension in there. So when I think I released it, I just felt a relief. Although it felt nice and I felt really good afterward, that pain, that release definitely scared me, and I caught myself thinking about it. I talked to my therapist about this, and she taught me about how I tend to intellectualize my feelings. What that means is that instead of focusing on the feeling, I tend to think about why I felt a certain way. Oftentimes, when she did ask me how I felt, I would start explaining why and my thought process. She showed me this chart of the right brain and left brain and how each part of the brain is responsible for certain things. So for example, on the left brain, that is more the rational thinking, the facts, and she called it the more journalistic side of the brain. And then on the right hand side is more of the creative brain, which is more instinctual, and it focuses on those feelings and the presence rather than the just the facts. And that was really interesting because as we were talking, I found myself intellectualizing how I felt rather than talking about my feelings, which was really interesting. I learned during that session that a lot of people who go through traumatic experiences because of trauma, it's a defense and protective mechanism. We don't want to feel those negative feelings. So one way to do that is to intellectualize it and talk about why or how. I wanted to share something that just happened just earlier today. It is Christmas Eve, so happy holidays for anyone who celebrate. I was posting some content on my personal social media pages and I started thinking about a lot of different things, and I think this time of the year really makes me think about family because family is a big part of the holidays. That's maybe having meals together, exchanging gifts. In my immediate family members growing up, we weren't huge on gift giving because we didn't have a lot of money. Present day, I definitely was reflecting on my relationships. I talked about this in another video where I'm not super close with my family. I felt this intense sense of sadness and I caught myself intellectualizing my feelings again. My thought process, and I guess to demonstrate what I mean, is that rather than talking about the actual feeling and how I felt, I will think about why I feel this way. The way it goes is that I will start thinking about I am sad because of XYZ, or I am feeling this way and that person may have said this to me and this is why I feel this way. That would just kind of ruminate in my head. And when I caught myself, I literally just stopped myself and I said to myself in my head, all right, what are the feelings you're feeling? Where is the feeling coming from? Once I sat with it, it was definitely intense, but tears came down because I think I'm just really sad. And I think not just myself, but a lot of people probably have relationships or the lack of relationships with their family members that perhaps they do want closer relationships, but depending on circumstances, personalities, things of that nature, it just might not work. And so that is the case. I wanted to share this because I think that it is helpful to recognize, and honestly, I never knew that I did this. And what's so interesting is I have always thought that I'm really in tune with my feelings, and perhaps I am. However, I have a lot of trouble just feeling my feelings and just letting it go. And what happens is when I intellectualize my feelings, it can be a bad thing because it may not be resolved. I may just have it on the back of my mind, and avoiding it doesn't help. I was reading a lot of different articles and things about this. It states that it could be healthy, but it can also be an unhealthy tactic to avoid emotions. If, for example, someone doesn't have the time or place to process those emotions, it may be good to put it aside. So an example that I read is that perhaps a nurse who's delivering negative test results to the patient's family might want to put aside those emotions of grief and sadness and intellectualize the situation, thinking about the survival rates and reviewing different medications that the patients can take. And when they get home, they can talk with their family about how the case made them feel. And in this case, intellectualizing their feelings is a useful tool to help the nurse get throughout their day. However, it can become unhealthy if the person never confronts that negative emotion they're pushing aside. What's so interesting is I got so used to being unable to face lots of negative emotions. So my coping mechanism is to intellectualize them and to think about why a certain situation has happened. Unfortunately, they do state that feelings will build up and can cause or worsen mental health conditions like anxiety, mood disorders, and panic disorders. And I am very open about how I have anxiety, so it definitely doesn't help me. I wanted to share this because if you are going through the same thing, I hope you're more familiar with it. Do you sit with your emotions, or do you try to think about why you're feeling a certain way and explain it that way? What was so interesting is that I actually had a conversation with my therapist, and we discussed something that I'm still thinking about. I told her what was happening at work, and then a lot of different things with my upbringing, with, from childhood to middle school to high school, college, post-college, working. What she said to me really hit me. What she said to me was, how did I get through all that? And I don't need to answer now, but to think about all the challenges and obstacles I went through. And I'm not going to share all that right now, I think partially because I'm uncomfortable, but also my point is that she had asked me to think about, how did I get through? Was there maybe a teacher or a mentor or just a support of some sort? I think one way definitely was this intellectualization, how I intellectualize my feelings, because pain for me became so normal that I think that if I felt the feelings every time, I don't know if I could deal with it. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now and sad for myself, and the feeling is coming from my chest. There's some feelings on my legs, and that's a way when I catch myself feeling these intense emotions, instead of thinking why I feel a certain way, a healthy way is to process those emotions so they don't build up. I really appreciate you listening to me. I want to be open because I think that the more I'm open, the more hopefully I can heal, but I'm also hoping that you can heal too if you're also dealing with something like this. I'm just so grateful that this is a breakthrough. It's definitely helped me kind of put the pieces together of who I am and the way I process things and live my life, because I think that a lot of the rumination, and I don't know if you ruminate, sometimes when I'm going through a situation, I tend to really think about the what ifs. I sort of catastrophize the situation. People who tend to go through traumatic experiences do this because that's a way to protect ourselves. I realized during my conversation with my therapist that me thinking about why I feel this way and how this happened and those series of events, it does not help me feel better. It helps me remove myself from feeling that feeling in that moment. But what happens though is I overwhelm myself with those details and I can kind of get stuck and I don't resolve those feelings. It's definitely been really helpful understanding this piece of me. I always thought that I was so in tune, like I mentioned, and it's just been such a interesting realization. I'm so grateful to learn more healthier coping mechanisms, because I think that while I can't change what has happened to me, I can't change what anyone said, I can't change anything I did, anything I said, but what I can do moving forward is hopefully have healthier coping mechanisms and hopefully build a support that helps me in a healthy way. I will say that a part of me is definitely scared of sharing these very vulnerable points of my life, but I think that that's part of my journey, although I'm not ashamed of it. It is very hard because I've never talked about this before. My goal in my life is really to make a difference for someone else. I hope no one else is going through very similar things, but if you are, I really hope this is helpful. I think for the longest time, I felt alone. I think people who have not felt like they belong, who feel like they're not part of a group or community, probably resonate with this a lot. Perhaps rather than focusing on why I feel this way, I can talk about how I feel, which is I feel lonely in some sense. And I think that the loneliness sits in my chest. My heart is beating really quickly right now. It's really human nature to want to be a part of something, to belong, to feel included. I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I kind of forgot my thought process. Sorry about that. I'm just very emotional right now because this is really candid and I didn't really have a script really when I turned on the camera, sat next to my Christmas tree. I wanted to talk about just this realization that I had about this new thing about intellectualizing our feelings or my feelings. I think everything is so connected to one another and I'm drawing those connections. Let me know if you've heard of this before. Let me know if you're struggling with some of the same feelings. Hopefully you're having a good holiday. This will be posted though after the Christmas holiday. I will see you next time. If you made it this far, please subscribe. Thank you so much for listening to me, and let me know if you enjoy these kind of chats. I really do appreciate your support and I really hope to see you soon. So thanks again for watching and I'll see you soon. Thanks, happy holidays. I guess happy new year too. Happy new year and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Bye.